Okay, welcome to the last roundtable of this afternoon. The ones who stay here before, you heard about the media and the important thing about communication. And now it's in English, in case you didn't realize it and speaking in English. This roundtable is going to be ways in which media will help you, your startup, to succeed. Because basically, we're going to talk the same, but more focus on what can they do, what cannot they do. We have John Mohan from Irish Tech News. I'm gonna, because they got a long curriculum, so I got just a few sentences of every single of them. Here is John. John is a former financial operational leadership professional with 12 years level 1 and 2 experience, making the process, projects, and team development for multiple teams and functions before he starts his transition over to cloud engineering and writing in 2013. He has been a part-time contributor to Irish News since I Need Glasses.
2016.
And has incorporated his own contact company, Malton. What's the name?
Muelta Technical Solutions.
Okay, limited in 2013. And then we have Anna. Anna is, here you go. No, external media, okay. External media, most of you know her already. She's an innovation and tech journalist. Now she's writing for Forbes and Español. It's a digital newspaper. Also, she's the co-founder and CEO of agency, as Juan said before, Welcome. And it's the female founders community. She's founded that too, and female star leaders. Then we got, let me see. Mario Palladini. He was born in Argentina, lives in San Francisco, worked for Oracle in the past 15 years in Berlin, where he founded Club Global's network for tech leaders with Global's TV and podcasts and one. He got a lot of things. Currently, he's organizing a nice event in Barcelona. It's the Global Sales Tech Festival in November this year. Well, you see the glasses. He's famous for the glasses too. He speaks English, thinks in German, and feels Spanish. And then we have Anna. Anna, you work in Business Insider, right?
Right.
Yeah. And called Confidential too. I remember.
I'm a journalist in Business Insider, and I specialize in entrepreneur and startup. And I also work in a PR agency in Welcome with Esther.
Okay. We're going to have two main issues, let's say. First, how can a media help a company to have success?
I suppose I'll start.
Yes.
The big thing for media is to be used by new companies in a way that links and communicates and vibrates with the company's vision. So as an entrepreneur, you're going to have a vision of what you want to make. That's going to come with a message, and that message needs to be delivered by the media. Media is access, part of your promotional plan and structure. So media, access, deliver via your channels to your target audience, and reaching your target audience, you will have use media to the best of what you could do as a startup. That might be growth hacking, looking at, I don't know, getting a friend to get you an intro, to get onto a show or something like that, or that could be articles and business reviews. But whatever your plan is, it must communicate with your brand. Richard Branson actually was very good at that. He got the media into his shop, 1977, and he was all buzz and all excitement, and he was giving it loads. I'm moving around again. And, it just communicated his brand. His brand was, I love records. I am passionate about what I do. So that message was delivered very effectively. You're still doing it today, by the way.
Thank you. Anna?
I completely agree. I think media help to the entrepreneur to improve your branding, your reputation, and your trust.
Well, first of all, we have to say thank you, Juanma Romero, for the free review.
From the invitation.
Exactly. and of course, thank you, Andres. Thank you, Startup Bullet team, for having me, for having us in this panel. And about the question, in so many ways. For example, obviously, increasing numbers in the website, I don't know, getting stakeholders, getting investors, getting, reputation in so many ways.
I have to say, I think the relationship between the media and the entrepreneur is bidirectional.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the entrepreneur need media to improve their brand, but also the media need the innovation and need the fresh news that the startup give to them.
Exactly.
Yeah, I remember my story when I started my first startup. I built a platform for tech leaders, and of course, I was not credible because it just started. And I was dying to get the typical as seen of. I want to have so many media brands and in order to put their logo to give some credibility to my platform. So I think many founders are looking for that, to have the as seen of in media, and that media, in that media. And it's because of that, actually, to give credibility, as you mentioned, and to give access to a network that probably will be much difficult to make it happen.
I think that's a very good point. I founded Melta in July of this year, and one of the things I'm very cautious about is using media and when I use media. I got to communicate a brand message, and I got to do it to the people who will buy, use, and love my products as I do. That's a very good point.
Yeah, and sometimes it's like publicity you don't pay. I mean, if you selling well, as they say, it's important for your business. In the first roundtable before, they talk about the importance of that. I mean, you can have a good idea, but if you don't communicate, it doesn't exist. People just don't realize it. And since you are journalists and you work in both sides of the of the environment, can you tell us the best and the worst thing you have seen in this relationship with media and entrepreneurship and startups?
I suppose I'll start. I refer to Richard Branson in terms of a good entrepreneur engaging the media and communicating not only the content of his brand but the spirit of his brand as well. I can't overstress how great this guy is being at it, and it's definitely my example for the best example. Think about it, 1977, he's in Tower Records. I love records. He can feel the enthusiasm coming off him in how he interacted with the media when they had the TV crew in. And then look at the Jeff Bezos going into space, and 40 years later, like the guy's jumping up and down, and he's doing the same thing 40 years later. I hope I won't be swooping around chairs in 40 years' time. But the whole thing about him is that he's just full of that enthusiasm for what he does. I was reading an article about Richard Branson, and they described him as giddy with excitement. And that's giddy with excitement 40 years later. And think about the consistency of interaction with the media through all those years, your good years, your bad years, your failures, your success. And think about that in terms of, what he's built. Media's been core to that. The communication of message of brand starting from Tower Records and the whole 9 yards. So that's my best example. My worst example, I'm sorry to say, is Irish. Oh, Paddy Cosgrove.
Paddy.
Oh, I tell you, Paddy's quite the boy. So anyway, Paddy Cosgrove, he's a PR guy, built the whole Web Summit. And, he's able to form relationships, like we all breathe, it just comes so easy to him. But his love of Twitter, unfortunately, came equally as easy. And he got embroiled in, legal battles with his vanity partner, so his co-founders. He called them vanity partners when they were in a legal entanglement with him. The press picked up on this. Irish Times, Irish Independent, all picking up on this bit of juicy gossip that turned out to be a protracted legal battle. So when you were looking to make waves in a negative sense, you look to Michael O'Leary, and Michael O'Leary can make waves and he can surf those waves. And they're one of the things that's consistent with the way he engages with media is the waves are never permanent, they're never protracted, they're never drawn out. Well, Paddy Cosgrove, for reasons known only to him, certainly not to me anyway, decided to draw them out, make it a protracted battle, engage in multiple legal battles with his minority partners, whom have left the business but still retain ownership in Web Summit. And he's also, everybody's also, rounded on the guy, hold on a minute here, who do you think you are, like he doesn't care, he's Paddy Cosgrove, he uses Twitter, whoa. And, at the end of the day, his landlord tried to kick him out. So he decided to invite, 5+ people, which is in breach of his contract. The landlord couldn't prove it in court. But why would the landlord go and do that? Because of all this publicity, all this meeting engagement, If somebody has more residents than they should in their house, why make it a worldwide issue, But Paddy Cosgrove, he uses Twitter. So his engagement with media doesn't always, the consistency required is not just about like the Richard Branson, and Richard Branson will tell you this as well, about having a consistent message that you engage with the Irish Times, the Independent, or whatever other media outlet. It's about social media, it's about how you interact with the world. And that perceptual result can change and vary with the contributions and interactions you make with it. And Paddy Cosgrove, unfortunately, you did thought he was going to use Twitter and be immune to these consequences, but he's not. And those consequences will mount. So if you use Twitter, be careful.
Okay,
Yeah.
interesting.
I agree with John. Forgive me. I agree with John, and for me, I'm sure the best part of all this is see from the first side to those startups to grow and those startups to succeed, at least. Because behind all the startups are persons, and we interview that person, and we know that person from a lot of years ago. So, we create a very personal relation with those entrepreneurs. So that's, for me, is the best part of this environment. And the worst, maybe Anna is going to agree with me, the worst maybe could be, this is an unpopular opinion, but the point to understand that we are not in the same team. I mean, agencies try to do their best. Journalists, we are trying to do our best. And in the middle of the way, so many times, we can meet each other and we can create magic here. And that maybe can be an article or a report someday. But from the first step, we are not in the same team. And this is very important to understand.
As a person who works as a journalist, as a person who works in a PR agency, it's important to remember that we are not in the same team, of course. And for me, in my opinion, the best thing is when the relationship works. I mean, when it starts to be proactive and the journalists ask you about the startup, ask you about the project, because the project is interesting to them. Your campaign is working. So for me, it's the best thing, and the worst thing, as Esther said, is when the relationship starts to be unhealthy. For example, the journalists receive more than 100 press releases per day. So if you remember the email, the person who is sending you a lot of emails of the same concept, and you even are not writing about that, it starts to be uncomfortable. So I think, for me, it's the worst thing in this case.
Or if you don't even know the name of the host or of the hostess, which I can say because I am experimenting that in my radio program.
As regards bad stories in media, I have one from my friend Mike Butcher from TechCrunch. He loves to share. He said that we need to be careful where we pitch. He was in the toilet peeing, and somebody was pitching him his startup. Like, I'm peeing, man. Like, chill out, So we need to be careful. Indeed, as entrepreneurs, we are so excited and we want to share a story, but we need to balance that. And we need to think that journalists, they're not sharing actually products. They're mainly sharing stories. So we need to be very good the way we put that together. How to put a great story that will make sense for their audience, actually. and the way to approach them. I mean, there are people like PR that invest great time in parties and events, networking with these people, they build relationship. Use that relationship, but remember always that it's always a story behind. And another good relationship I see, and I think something that could have been mentioned in the last panel, because we're talking about the topic as regard money. Sometimes they don't have money to pay an agency, or sometimes there isn't a budget, but they need to invest time. I find completely interesting that part, super relevant for entrepreneur. And one solution that it's not new actually, it's more than 30 years in Germany they started, is media for equity. So you can get in touch with a publication, and if they're interested, if it makes sense for the business model, they will give you the space in their publication. Sometimes they have spaces available they need to fulfill, and they will give you the space for equity and not for a budget. And there are some industries that make sense this, like e-commerce. Zalando was a great success actually. Wallapop, I hear as well in Spain.
Atlas Media.
Atlas Media is doing a lot of that,
yeah.
We're doing that as well. In Global, I'm helping some startups and I'm helping to build campaigns. And sometimes the startups, they don't have the budget, and we just advise them for equity, basically. And of course, have to make sense for the founder or for the company or for the medium. But I think that could be one solution for entrepreneurs to get access.
Another thing they said before, and you said that too, the problem with you make a startup and you think it's great, but no one knows. When you call a journalist, you have to explain to him how it can change society, for example, how can improve the life of people. Because if you don't convince the journalist, he's not going to read it. I'm a journalist, someone called me, I got this. Why? I have to write about what you are telling me. Or you pay, like some newspapers do.
Yeah, but that, I don't think the paying.
And that's the way, because Media for Equity is great, and I'm glad that you are doing that, but Media for Equity is another completely different thing about what we are talking about here, because that's not journalist. I mean, you are paying for appearing in that media,
exactly.
Okay?
That's completely
so
different.
it's completely different. I think the best way, and plus, it's not necessary to pay to appear in media, and this is so much important that you guys understand this.
It's no go. It's not pay to play.
Exactly, and yes, you need a good story, but of course, you need your product that must be the best, or your service. Because yes, you are going to sell your products to a journalist across a story, but you have to get or to have a very, very good product. Because bluff, we are not ready for more bluff.
And sometimes the problem when they pay a newspaper or whatever, if you pay once, you're going to have to pay forever. Because,
That's true.
So it's better to convince and to have a good story.
I think also there are interesting points being made, but I think also one has to consider, you know, what are you doing when you're interacting with the journalist? You know, you should be selling a story to the journalist, and that story should be targeted to the journalist's target audience, which should tie into your brand. And when you have that connection made, the journalist is more likely to respond positively to running with the story and garnering more information. But the thing that one should always be conscious of is be careful to not oversell when you're entering an arrangement like that. You're selling awareness of who you are and what you do by selling a story to a journalist, by the journalist connecting with the story and understanding that story is appealing to his target or her target audience. And that connection string is very, very important, I think, for real journalism to be engaged with your company.
And it's another thing I always tell entrepreneurship and startups. Sometimes, as you say, you call someone, the first thing is to close the door. A good thing is call a journalist or send an email or whatever. Don't say nothing about what you want to sell. Say, okay, I am an expert in mobility, in energy. So when you write something about that item, just call me, you need me. Just with that, you just get in the list of experts, and he's going to call you. And then the next time you call, he's like, he's a nice person, I'm going to listen to
That's a great point.
And besides all of this, there's another interesting question here. Why you want to appear in media? I mean, what is the reason, really? Because you have to be ready if you are going to starting to appear in a million of media. That's complicated too. You have to answer a lot of questions, a lot of interviews, and
In fact, sometimes some
Exactly.
CEO are not ready to answer the interviews, or sometimes they are not prepared enough to do it.
Or the platform crash because they got so
Yeah.
many views.
Because the first time is so important, because if you use that bullet, and I'm not talking about any country, you use that bullet, maybe it's the only bullet you're going to use with that newspaper for years. So better wait and be ready and tell a story.
And I don't know how Dublin is working with this theme about relation between startup and entrepreneurship, but here in Spain, actually we have a very good ecosystems, and basically all of media that I can think at this time have a part dedicated specific about the startups and entrepreneurship, and that's really, really, really good.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I suppose Ireland has a strong startup ecosystem. The regulatory framework and support is strong from the government in Ireland. It also has a very, I suppose, positive relationship, or there's positive engagement, but that's more incremental, or should I say, incidental. So, I have something I want to bring to you. You're going to have doors opening if you are in an incubator with, X, Y, and Z, and they all, of course, feed into the government's framework. So there is very, very positive engagement there, I have to say. And if you want to, but if you're not engaged in an incubator, I'm not. I started a business a month ago. If I have a good story, I'm going to think about my brand, think about that consistent, all I talked about, and I'm going to jump on the wagon and make my sale. And it is a sale. I'm selling you a story about X, Y, and Z. I know your audience love it. I know you're going to love it as well. So how about we have a coffee? It's all about the relationship.
But you think in Spain or in Ireland, you think the media, the newspapers, maybe the economical things, maybe the TVs know a lot, do you think they give the space, enough space to the startups and the in Spain or in Ireland? Do they give the enough time or enough space?
Personally, I think they don't. Like, there's RTE is the national broadcasting station, and unfortunately, it has to be quite big. So the mechanism for mass media engagement is normally through conferences, not too dissimilar to this one, and that's where you might get a couple of minutes. But if you're not linked with an incubator, because the incubators feed into the government and relationships. Once again, we're in Ireland, we're a relationship-based society. So, if you should I say, tone the line and getting to know X, Y, and Z and know how to.
Yeah. I think on that topic, Andres, is a sexy topic now that has been going on for a while. Been talking about startup innovation. The challenge is that there is not much budget to pay for that space, and people need to work to communicate all this. So that's why there's some good. They use it as a foundation, or there's like a accelerator company, build accelerators, incubators, and they do all these spaces to give and show this as a CSR almost. They're giving us a good image and going through startup innovation. But you need to crack. For us, the way we crack it, or like do, we have a GovTech product as well. We build it, and for budgets were low. And there was a government, like a candidate who wanted to become the mayor of the city, and he has budget, he has visibility, but he wants to have a sexy technology to show off, and that's another way how to find your way to get access.
We got the mayor of Vigo for the.
I'm curious about Ireland ecosystem. How many emails do you receive during the week about startups and entrepreneurship?
Oh, I direct them all to my editor.
A number, I mean, you know?
I don't know how many my editor gets, but since I've come to Salamanca, there's been 2 jobs that he's put up.
Okay.
So I always, in Irish Tech News, the editor makes the call. And if puts out to pool, you know, whoever's, like I'm an engineer, so a lot of, you know, high complex engagements I would be involved in, or crazy ones, apparently. My forte. Yeah, no, I wouldn't get mails. I got a couple of mails from PR agencies, but they'd be intermittent. The lion's share goes through my editor, whom in turn shares it out to a pool. And like I said, I've been here like 2 days, and you know, 2 days, 2 jobs. Yay!
Okay, guys, we're about to finish. Before closing, just one advice to the startups.
It's difficult.
So for me, consider your brand, consider your journey, and communicate your message via media in its entirety. If you need guidance, think Richard Branson. I'd say.
For me, try to make easy the journalist's job.
Right.
So give to him not a good press release, give to him a new.
Exactly. For me, maybe try to make your homework before trying to selling me a new. I mean, some documentary, please.
I'll say sales. Learn to sell. Because you need to, at the end, if you learn to sell, you'll sell to a journalist, to an investor, to your teammate. So, yeah, sell better.
And that's important. You both said before. Think about the type of journalist you're talking, the journal you're talking to. If you go to the whole society, or you go to a specific one of technology, because the message is different. You can send the same press note to all type of media, because it's not working.
That's the homework I'm talking about.
Yeah. Okay, pues thank you.
Thank you.
Pues seguís con esto.